Representative, thanks for joining us here. I know it's a busy week, a lot going on. Missouri voters have enjoyed a privilege that voters in every state don't enjoy, which is the ability to directly change the law or directly change the Constitution. Why do you think that pathway should be more narrow?
So the process overall, state to state, is different. I mean, different states handle this process differently. Our state is one of the few states around our nation that do allow for some type of adjustment statutorily or through our Constitution by an initiative petition process. And literally almost every state handles this process differently.
You can't do it in Illinois. They call it a non-binding referendum.
That's correct.
It's basically a public opinion.
I think overall the underpinning of that is because we live in a representative government system. And so the process of those laws being put in front of the voters typically is a process that involves the legislative process. In Missouri, we've got the process where it can happen outside of what I would call kind of the normal, as far as across the country, the normal process of adjusting the state statutes or the Constitution. So we're one of the few that have this lever. But the process is completely different sometimes between one state and ratification thresholds, the process overall of signatures on how many in the different counties or congressional districts. So it can vary quite a bit.
But I think voters might have a hard time connecting with why a process is important. They care more about the issue. They care more about access to Medicaid expansion or the abortion question. Even if they oppose they want to have a voice in that.
That's right.
Wouldn't this action of making that change harder dilute the voice of the voter?
I don't think it makes it more hard. I don't think it makes it more difficult. I think the process has always been our process within the House and the Senate in the state of Missouri has always been a process where we have to get a majority within the House and Senate. So it's concurrent majority idea within us. So we don't get to pass it.
You're saying you have to have a majority in two places.
That's correct. We have to have a majority in the House and the Senate before it even goes out into the state.
But this would mean, this bill, as I understand it, the initiative petition reform would mean you'd have to have a majority in every one of the dozens and dozens of Missouri counties. Doesn't that give a very small rural county outsized influence over millions of people in the St. Louis metro?
I think the way this always gets presented is in the negative. I think it also gives the ability for one person to make it a positive in that particular district as well. Almost always when you deal with this particular topic, it's always presented in the negative. It would allow one particular district or one particular individual to make the thing go down. The same is true on the other side. It could take one district, one person in that district to make it positive, whoever that last vote is.
What's the positive? What's the upside of
The positive is it creates a concurrent majority outside of the building as also. I don't believe it should be easier for people outside of the building to get something both placed on the ballot and passed than it is for our representatives, the ones that we elect, the people that we have sent there in a representative government. And so the process of a concurrent majority is not new. It's the way that we do everything. Federally, it does at the state. In the state of Missouri, there has never been a concurrent majority needed. There's just been a simple majority needed. So it's been easier. Until the last 20 years, there hasn't been an abuse.
Just to test that for a moment, if I can interject. Sure. There is a degree of that. You have to have enough petitions in 6 of the 8 congressional districts just to even start the process. So you do have to have regional buy-in, do you not?
I think if we was going to be fair on the signature part of it, maybe we should require a simple majority of all of the people of the state on signatures. Maybe we should put the signatures out where you get asked for a positive response or a negative, and if you don't get to 50%, it doesn't get put on the ballot. So the signature threshold is much lower than the threshold it takes to get something out of the House and the Senate down here. There already is a concurrent majority that passes the House and the Senate. That is the first layer of this concurrent majority. It gets sent to the voters and then it's got to be approved by the voters in a simple majority, that concurrent majority.
Whichever way you cut it, you're attempting to put more obstacles between the voter beginning the process and the law or the amendment being added. Let me read you a quote from one of your colleagues. Representative Scott Cupps of Shell Knob, a Republican. To the Post-Dispatch, he's quoted saying, "You think this is fun for us? They put us in this position to counter what they started. We didn't ask for this fight, but here we are. As a state that has a majority that is very, very conservative, it is not our duty to make sure the minority has a voice." Do you agree with that?
Well, I think, I won't speak for my colleague, but I think he I would have framed it a little bit differently than them. Obviously, everybody down here in the Capitol in our state has a voice, but how legally we adjust our statutes and our Constitution is important. And I think specifically over the last 20 years, these measures have come up much more frequently and they're much larger. And just as a base, kind of foundation for me, I don't believe that a private industry should use our Constitution to regulate themselves.
Gambling.
Gambling, marijuana, abortion is an industry. It's a private, money is made in that. We can name several of them. I mean, even...
Didn't they only do that because the legislature didn't act first?
I think... What comes first, the cart or the horse? I think
the legislature could have regulated marijuana, could have regulated gambling, but didn't.
That's correct, and that's the process we're in as a state always. We're in a representative government. Our representatives, sometimes it is extremely difficult down here to build a consensus on a particular issue because we have a representative or a senator from every area of the state. That process of consensus is very challenging inside of the building.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yep.
Because the difficulty that our society faces with agreeing with each other, I think, is the heart of the issue.
Yes.
So let me test this theory by asking you this question.
Sure.
If this concurrent majority in every county becomes the law of the land, and in the future, to change the amendment, to add an amendment to the Constitution or to change state law, you have to have a simple majority in every single county. What's an idea that would be so popular that it would win in St. Louis City and win in, you name it, Pike County?
Yeah. Well, there has been about 4 or 5 things that have passed this threshold. I think the one that comes to mind the easiest recently was when the voters of the state of Missouri said that MoDOT has to spend their money fixing roads.
The lockbox.
That was a very benign, apolitical issue, and for me, that's exactly the type of adjustments to our Constitution that should be made. I think foundationally for me, when we have individual industry using our Constitution to regulate themselves, I think that is a bad position. Our Constitution is designed to be legislated from. It's not designed to be a legislative document. And some of the abuses over the last 20 years of this process of individual people utilizing it to regulate themselves has brought about the need potentially for a change in the process that we do. In other words, if we are still going to allow an initiative petition like that to come forward, and nobody has said down here, I certainly haven't, that one of those couldn't get put in, how that gets ratified, that process should have broad consensus across the state. If we are going to allow the marijuana people, or we are going to allow a different private industry, it might be hemp the next go around, to regulate themselves through the Constitution, there should be broad consensus across the state. For me, I just wish it would never get put in the Constitution. I don't think that our Constitution is the proper place is much of the stuff that's been put in it over the last several years. I think that it is a much better place to have that legislatively, where we have the flexibility as a legislator to make adjustments. There were things put in, both of the last 2 things, that really have bound our hands now, even if things change in some of those areas, that particular subject line. We don't have the flexibility. We have no flexibility.
Are you referring to abortion and sports betting?
Could be, or marijuana. I mean, some of the provisions in that particular thing, I wasn't really excited about the potential of handcuff. We can't now, as a state, we can no longer regulate the potency of marijuana. We've always had the ability to do that. And so, to me, it removes the flexibility that's most important at the legislative level. And now we've inserted something in our Constitution which should be a framework to legislate from. We've actually put legislation in it. And I think that's the response, is if we are going to do that, the people around that we should have a broad consensus around the state. I think it's likely that those issues would be difficult to pass. I think it was difficult to pass the MoDOT one. I think anytime you go to adjust the Constitution, the people of our state take it seriously. I'm not one of those people in general that says that people don't know what they're doing. I do think that when we go to adjust the framework of our state, it should be difficult. It's difficult for us as legislators. I mean, you try and wrangle the votes to get something out of the House and Senate. I think the idea that it would be or should be easier for the people outside of the legislative process to present and pass an adjustment to our statutes or Constitution. I think they should at least be as equal as possible. There should be some process there And I think the best process is one that we already currently use within the House and Senate.
I appreciate the points you're making about broad consensus, and I can tell that you're passionate about these issues, so I appreciate you advocating for those with us here. Maybe it's just a matter of political philosophy, and we'll never quite know, but I wonder if a more assertive, proactive legislature might have headed off these sort of populist surges at the ballot box. But that's theory and question for the academics to get into. I want to ask you about something more direct, which is going to be on your desk very likely in the next week or so here. Why should Missouri Republicans play partisan hardball in Kansas City? Isn't a 6-2 map already really leaning in favor of Republicans?
I think the way that you frame that is already in a negative position. I'd like to
take
it back
that's
to
an objective statement.
Kind of the three places that I look at on a map. And once again, I told you before we started, I'm a youth pastor by trade. So this process of learning these different types of issues, and especially on the mapping issue, I think there's pretty good consensus around the things that are important when it comes to drawing a map. Is there contiguity? Is there compactness? And is there a shared community to the best of your ability?
And obviously, in this map, is there a Democrat in Kansas City?
Obviously, I think that's a fair question. I think that the map, the process of it is always going to be political. When you draw a map, no matter what it is, I went back and looked at the voting record of the last time we approved the maps here in the state of Missouri. Some Republicans voted against the current 6-2 map. Some of the Democrats voted against the 6-2 map, vice versa. So the issue of drawing the maps is always going to be a political issue. So for me, as an individual, a new legislator, I'm looking at it from a much more technical standpoint. Does the map achieve those three goals in general?
Okay, good.
And does it make sense? Is
it's a political issue, it's a technical issue, but it's also
right.
a timing issue. Why now?
Well, I think the timing is because our governor asked us to deal with the issue.
But what numbers are you going to use? The census is 6 years old.
I think the process of what you said about why is important, and that's always the question. I don't always get a chance to handle the bills that I want to handle or the issue that I want to handle down here. Sometimes issues come to us as legislators. I can tell you out of the two things that we're dealing with in this particular special session, I'm more excited about IP reform because I've invested myself in that in the Elections Committee. But our governor has asked us to consider this, just like our floor leader sometimes asks us to consider things, or our speaker, that maybe for me, I don't know if the timing's right, or maybe I just don't like that particular way the bill's wrote. There's lots of things down here. But if it's here, it's here. I've got to vote on it. And those are the three layers that I'm going to be looking at. Does the map make sense? Is the people connected? Is the districts compact?
And you won't consider the timing of it?
I think the timing is only important if it was outside of the argument we're making right now. The governor's asked us to consider this. I don't have
the timing is important because the Constitution says you draw the maps when you have the census, and the census is as outdated as it could be right now.
I think you can draw the map anytime after the census is done. I mean, typically, you're right. I don't think anybody's made an argument that in a typical scenario it gets drawn after the census within a year or two. The last time was 2022. The why for me, I can't wrestle with that. Because I'm only wrestling with the map.
Yeah.
The issue's been brought to me as a legislator.
I understand that, and you have to face tough choices.
That's right.
I respect that. I guess I wonder about the politics and the optics of it. Do you have a concern that this might send a subconscious signal to voters that Republicans are running away from the backlash of their bad ideas?
Yeah, I don't view it that way. I can't if I'm going to look at this issue objectively. I have to look at the map that's in front of me, and in a real technical sense, I have to make a determination if I believe that it meets those criteria. And certainly even the map that's been drawn, I feel like meets those requirements. Will I vote for it? We'll have to wait and see. But I think the idea that the map has been gerrymandered, or that the map doesn't present a compact, contiguous communities of interest to the best. I mean, some of those cities are large, as you know.
But it's cracking Kansas City into three big pieces.
And I think
that's not compact and contiguous.
Yeah,
the rest of the state
sure,
is.
we can make an argument about one city, but overall the map has less cities divided and less municipalities divided. So if you're going to make an argument on a particular city, you might be able to make that in Kansas City, but there's some other cities now that are kept together. And so that process
Colombia is
overall-
also cut in half.
Yeah, it's a technical situation. It's always political.
It just happens to be where all the Democrats live.
Yeah, I'm not running away from that. I think the idea that the other party wouldn't draw maps that were favorable to them, I think, is a pretty weak argument. I think we see that around the United States.
They certainly do in Illinois.
Yeah, right. It is what it is. It is a political process, and according to the Constitution, it's been reserved to the states. We have control over that. And so it is. It's a part of the process. I mean, when you talk about things that maybe I enjoy or don't enjoy about working down here, there are parts of this job politically that I don't really enjoy. And those, I always go back to more of a technical argument when I deal with that particular issue or bill or idea. Sometimes you have to remove yourself from some of the whys and deal with what is in front of you. Technically, in order to get through that process.
A thorough conversation. I've enjoyed it.
Sure.
Last question.
Yeah.
Make a prediction. Does this 7-1 map pass?
Yes, I believe that it's got consensus. When the governor calls you into a special session, no matter what party you are, there is a lot of political pressure in that process. My arms haven't been twisted, but I think no matter what state legislature that you may be a part of around the state, when your governor calls you to consider a particular idea, a revolt on an idea that they want, I think would be politically devastating for our governor and our party. There will be some people that probably will vote against it or for it from both parties. But I think our governor has asked us to consider these two ideas, and I believe that I think they will both pass.
Representative Banderman, thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.